Alrighty, good morning, YouTube. Hajime Zero here, back with another movie animation review, and this one is very special. I'm gonna turn off the light here because you guys can't see the full image. Hopefully, it'll come up a little bit better, and it didn't. Um, this one is a good anime classic, and I might talk a while, or it may run a little bit while, but just by me talking about this. This is Akira by Kashio. How you say his name? Katsuhiro Ôtomo. Um, and of course, it's based off of a manga. And I'm gonna talk about the movies. Well, the story in general, because of course the manga is different from the book, and it's a very good reason why. And I'm gonna talk about some the same method of other anime, why the anime and manga are different. So this story is pretty much about the Japanese government. They were conducting these highly experiments on kids at a certain point. These kids pretty much had like telepathic abilities, and they were trying to control their powers and whatnot. And then one, it was four kids in the beginning, and one of them was called Akira, and he had a transcendental awakening and had destroyed Tokyo. um and ever since then, at a certain point, Neo Tokyo had risen up. The Japanese government, they were still trying to keep at bay with the experiments and control the power overall. But at a certain point, technically with Akira had died, but they were still harboring his organs and tissue and still trying to figure out the whole mystery of the whole thing of what happened that day in 1988. But furthermore, in the story, these fundamentalists, they were trying to kidnap one of the kids because, or no, what would you call it then? I don't know if it's fundamentalists. They're fundamentalists in the story, but I think it's the wrong set of people I just described. But anyway, it was a group of political activists that were trying to kidnap the kid that worked for the military, or they were just pretty much rebels. And I think they were trying to just get the kids away. But what they didn't know is that these kids are on medication, and when they don't take the meds, their powers go berserk. And Tetsuo was a prime good example. He came into sudden shock with with one of the kids, and then he started developing powers. And I'm assuming with his aggression and of how he bodily collected so many memories. I personally I believe, and they didn't state this in the movie. I don't know if they state this in the book, but I think his brain wave patterns had acted in a certain way that heightened his ability, his sixth sense telepathically, a hell of a lot higher than the rest of the kids. And you know what I'm about to say is a little bit of a spoiler, but he had the same capabilities of Akira or Akira, whatever you want to call it. And when I review the movie Chronicle, it was kind of like the same thing with that character there. But I'm going to get into that a little bit later of its major of this film's major influence in media today, but and pop culture as well. But pretty much that was a whole overall thing that they were trying to kidnap, these test subjects, and then that happened, and it kind of went back in a full circle. Except, of course, this particular kid, he's a little bit older, and he's much more rebellious, and he's a part of a biker gang. And the one thing I did like about the movie, it did have two stories going that did intertwine pretty much, but the manga, of course, had explored it a hell of a lot better. You had the second protagonist, or anti-hero, you can call him, is Kaneda, who's leader of the biker gang called the Capsule Gang, and they're fighting the clowns. And the whole opening first scene of them chasing each other was well done beautifully, because on their motorcycles they have these little light trails that follow them wherever they go. And I've seen the same method put on something else. I think Tron had did it too, but I can't really remember. Yeah, I think Tron had came out first, so you possibly could say visually that's where that part had came from. And again, there's a whole bunch of Akira videos here on YouTube where you can watch. This one I watched a while ago. You know, the very different versions and the creation, and the design of the bike itself. They made a prop model, replica. I think in reality it can't do all the stuff it did in the movie, but visually it does look very cool. Out of all the bikes, that one looked like one that the military would have, not a typical street gang. But in the movie, it did say if you want, yeah, Kaneda had told Tetsuo if you want one, yeah, go steal it yourself. So yeah. Um, so as the story goes on, Tetsuo's off of his meds. They did capture him at one point, and then the kids were trying to attack him. I think they were trying to kill him at yeah, they did try to kill him, but that was later in the movie. At first, they were trying to control him, and the kids were the ones with the most experience because they're a lot older than what you think they are. Like some of them were born in like 1999, or they were born in the 90s. I even looked it up. It's three kids: Takashi, Kyoko, Masaru. Um, I think they were born in the mid 90s. Yeah, you guys can correct me on that. Just go to like Akira Wiki or Akira anything, even the main Wikipedia page, the one that's not the manga, the film. They'll tell you all the details, especially if you click on the manga. Because the doctor was very old. He was born in the 50s, and the general was born in like the 70s, I believe. And I think the movie takes place in like 2030 something. They age really well. They don't look that old at all. But um, going back to the main point, um, so with the story that continues to go, is a pretty much back and forth a little bit. Even only happened once of Tetsuo being captured, and once he's aware of his powers, the first time he had got out, the biker gang, the rival biker gang came after him and his girlfriend, and then they had tried to attack him, but of course the capsule gang had showed up. It was the three mains, Yamagata, Kai, and Kaneda, and they ambushed, and then in the midst of Tetsuo's anger, he's beating up on the biker, and then he's like leaving, and then that's you know when the kids try to trigger him, and that's when his powers were going off the chart, or it was climbing to be off the chart. He was hallucinating, you know, and with the animation itself, they did a very good job because there's a shot in there where he's seeing the ground falling and then his intestines spill out, and then you can see in reality nothing's really happening, but you can see him trying to like put them back in. And after watching it multiple times, I just now like noticed that like the hallucination is very real. And I think it goes a little bit what happened behind the scenes. This was the first anime that they actually did record the voiceover actors before they animated anything. And usually in Japan, it's the animation first and the recording second. And that's probably why the mouths were a little bit off in the early dubbing in the 90s, and when it looked and sounded bad. But here in America, we've always done that. We recorded the performance first and animated it second. That's what made it stand out. Again, I don't know why in this particular project they did the reverse of it, but this version I have, I like it the best. I've never heard the original dub of the English one, but it's been made fun of and mocked so many times. And I think with this revamp of the 2001 version stood out very well. One of the guys that did the voices of the Power Rangers, and of course Wendell Lee, two main known voiceover actors and actresses, they did a very good job. But I keep jumping off with the story. So with the story and continuing, previously on the story, but pretty much the second time Tetsuo escapes, he's the one with the powers. That's when the military, they just said screw trying to capture him. They're going to capture him. They're going to try to take him out, and he finds out that Akira is the main source of where the power is coming from. So I think in my theory is that of course Akira still existed, but even the kids said that the thing with Akira's power, everybody has it from the start. It's just that who's the strongest to tap into it, and Tetsuo was one of those strong seeds, and I think he still existed on a transcendental on an astral plane, pretty much like with Professor X and X-Men. Even though they never explained it in the movie, he even though his physical body died, his mutant power, he was trained with it so well in the original timeline. You could count this on the movies or any other medium, but even though he died, his astral form still existed. His conscience still existed on a certain form, and I think that's what Akira was somewhat doing. But of course, we never hear his voice or hear him say anything. He was doing it really with the kids, and even one of the kids used another character as a medium because she was possibly heightenedly aware as well. And something's telling me, of course, in the manga they explore it. I personally haven't read the manga, or I haven't sat down and read it. I've actually read bits and pieces. It is on my books or libraries, my library books to get. But Cinefix has a very good video. If you just type in Akira, what's the difference? Their videos will pop up. They do a bunch of those. What's the difference between the book, manga, comic versus the movie or TV show? They have a good Walking Dead section. And getting back to the story, the second attack is when the awakening actually happens, and it triggers pretty much the same mushroom blast that was in the beginning of the movie, except this time it was kind of different. The powers had manifested with Tetsuo so bad without the meds, he had mutated, and he pretty much couldn't control it anymore. But with Akira, it really didn't show a mutated blob. All you saw was just the explosion in the very beginning of the movie. Hate the bodily functions. Hate the yawning. But you saw the explosion but no mutation, and I think that was the difference. But at the same time, we really don't know. It wasn't a major close up of like whatever building or place he was in if he did mutate. And the visual was very good at the time. It really looked nasty, especially when the blast was getting bigger and bigger, and it looked like a reverse shot they had did of Tetsuo as a big ass baby, and then it came back normal. And pretty much the spoiler, and I never got this until I read it online, and even when I showed this movie in class, it was like we had to do, it was when I was in college. I think the assignment was we had to do a project on someone in our field, and I was in animation at the time, and I chose Katsuhiro Ôtomo, and I brought in this movie, and I showed the clip of that final confrontation, which was beautifully well animated. I was debating, do I do the action scene, do I do the opening action scene with the bikers, or do I do the one with the ambush with it looked like classic, Yu Yu Hakusho 90s anime action, or do I do the final confrontation? I was like, yeah, it should be the final confrontation, because Animatrix had kind of used it at certain points, and it was one of the reasons why I picked up the movie, was seeing that whole mutated arm. And the visuals look very, very good. They even created their own colors, and pretty much going back to it, because I'm getting off track again. The spoiler alert to the ending, and they don't, of course, tell you this. Tetsuo pretty much created it was pretty much another Big Bang, the Big Bang Theory, and he just didn't do it on Earth. It would have obliterated everything. They changed it in the book. I'm gonna get to the book in a second, but he pretty much created an alternate reality, a Big Bang, and it created a whole new version of life. Even if you see it stayed like right after the credits. You can see like the different universes come into the frame as the credits are going. And I never got that, but again, the wiki had told me, what the ending was. Someone else had told me too, and it goes back to the project that I did in class, and even I said I didn't get it at first. I thought it was something that the creators had left to their own interpretation, and the book ending was somewhat the same but somewhat different. It was a different hit that I think the creator was going for, and that's pretty much a spoiler for the movie. Now, with the book, to keep it very, very quick, with the comic book or the manga, they gave the characters a lot more layers. And come to find out, it was Katsuhiro Ôtomo. He was working on the manga at the same time they approached him to do the movie. And so pretty much he never finished or came up with the ending for the book, and they told him to do the movie. Now, I'm not trying to downplay the movie at all, because the movie is very good. Like I said, it has its influences in pop culture and film even today. But uh, it gave a lot more depth, of course, because it's the book, and um, it had a lot more content you were entertained by, and it had different character interactions than the movie had. So, like for example, the main colonel that was in charge of the whole operation into Captain Tetsuo, he's viewed as an antagonist, but then later him and Kaneda are on the same side, and in the movie they don't interact at all. And there are even some characters that were in the manga that were cut out, probably because of course time constraint, that were cut out and not put in the movie. On the top of my head, I can't really remember, and some of the character deaths were different. And like I said, some of the interactions were different. Tetsuo had a lot more. You felt a little bit more empathy for him. Um, Pretty much what I'm going to get into. Of course, it is a little bit more graphic because the Japanese culture, they have no boundaries, and of course we drop atom bombs on them, and they live in a post-apocalyptic world. But I'm not going to get to the politics of that. So starting from the first point that I can think of, some of the character deaths. The character who was Yamagata, who was Kaneda's right-hand man, he died differently in the book than he did in the movie. In the movie, he died off screen. We didn't see him die, but in the manga, his head blows up. Tetsuo ends up killing him. I think, I don't know the scene in particular, but I remember some of the panels in my head. He tried to shoot him, and then like the movie Scanners, he just sends a telepathic void of emptiness, and then his head just blows up. And I was sitting and looking. I was like, oh shit, because to be honest, Yamagata, his character kind of reminded me of Kuwabara from Yu Yu Hakusho. He was loudmouth, and it was very funny. I was like, okay, these two, I can see these two getting along very, very quickly or fighting each other. Yeah, but yeah, I saw that. I was like, whoa. And then like I was saying earlier with the sex in the movie, the only thing you saw in the movie was, of course, Cowdy's shirt being ripped off, and it was only for a quick second. But in the comic, Tetsuo actually has a harem with, her being in there, and it gave layers to the character because he was so emotionally, beaten. You saw it in the movie, but like I said, it stretched it out further in the comic, and he was frustrated with a lot of things, and sometimes, he was really attached to Cowdy because for more of the emotional, distress. To be honest, it kind of reminded me of Patrick Bateman a little bit from American Psycho. You know, he has a little bit of, they both of them have a little bit of empathy and whatnot, but they're both technically cowards because they don't know how to deal with their emotions. And it's kind of like bipolarism that fluctuates. They may be sexually frustrated or frustrated in other ways, but at times they just want to be held and comforted. And to be honest, it is kind of like a coward. It's still a cowardly thing. because you are murdering people and whatnot. It is kind of a humanistic thing, but at the same time, I don't have that much empathy. It's more pity. But that's pretty much that part of the graphic part of how different it is, and why I pretty much talked about it, because it is in difference of layers. But now I'm gonna skip to the influence. Visually, this movie had a lot of influences. Batman animated series. Well, Batman Beyond did. Some of the animators had, or it was stated that some of the bike chase scenes, they were influenced from this movie. Kanye West's music video, Stronger, the visuals were influenced by Akira, especially with him being in the hospital. And immediately when I saw the music video, I knew immediately where he got it from. Some of the other video games, Saints Row, they referenced Kaneda and Tetsuo, with the Ronin gang. The Matrix also borrowed some elements, and they even did it with another anime that I'm also going to talk about later. Revolutions, the big mushroom blast that you see with the Neo Smith fight came from this film. I know it's another one that I stated Batman before, but Teen Titans also used it, especially when it was Teen Titans Go to Tokyo. Kaneda actually appears in one of the scenes. You see his pill jacket, and what was the last one on the tip of my tongue? It's gonna hit me. Hopefully it doesn't hit me too late. So I'm gonna try to talk to keep you guys entertained by my soothing voice. But one of the SNK video games, the mutated Tetsuo, the visual looked like him, and the special with the giant arm coming out, that was definitely from it. I can't remember which SNK title. I probably was King of Fighters. But the character's name is K99. But of course, you can look it up on Google. You see a much more detailed, emphasis. They never use a character again. But as soon as I was playing it on the arcade cabinet, and I was playing against the computer, and I saw it, and I was like, "This motherfucker's Tetsuo. What is going on?" Yeah, and it was just beautifully done. And I think, and this is my last statement before I close out. I think the character of Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z also came from the influence of Tetsuo at the end, with the whole, hairdo, it just flurrying out. And when my former roommate and I were watching this, he was joking. He was like, he got that straight up Vegeta looking haircut. Only difference is that it's not a giant widow's peak, but that's my whole banter on it. I probably missed a few points because there were some moments even I was saying, about the film. It had a religious and science, tone, but I really didn't get into it. I think I got into it a little bit, talking about the telepathic powers and of course the Big Bang. But again, it is very, even that piece is stretched out even further in the book. You see that there's a mole on both sides of the spectrum, and it goes a little bit into our politics a little bit, even right now, of how the science and religion, and even the governments, even the Colonel said it in his movie himself, we're all being controlled by controlled by corrupt politicians and capitalists, and I think that's heavily going on now. Again, I'm not going to get into it that much because it is a controversial topic, and it's my opinion, and no one really asked me for it, but I'm just stating that it's heavily going on right now. They're the puppeteering that's really triggering and pulling everybody's strings and into getting us to fight each other. So, in a way, the Colonel said that even in the movie. And I said it on Facebook. Having my biased, neutral opinion on it. But yeah, that's pretty much my review on Akira. Hopefully, I'm hoping this one to get a little bit more track. I really want to get discussions with people, on my channel about the movies I've seen. So far, again, not going on the violin sad part, I haven't got that much comments, only like 2. I'm kind of shocked that Sweet November has got a lot of views. And even one person said to my review they're gonna go ahead and watch it now. But that one has like 64 views as the last time I looked. But hopefully this one will too. Because it's certain things I really want to have discussions with people with, like the Walking Dead and Batman Beyond ones that movies that I've seen. I think uh, some of even the older ones like Wreck, Extinction, the those kind of films. Not the throwaway ones that I personally know of, but Sweet November I was shocked by. It's not really a throwaway, but I was feeling the emotion. But anyway, I'm going on a banter. So I will talk to all you guys later. And peace.